I have some things to say. I want to say about the party in general, but before we get there, I just wanted to note that, like, they came in with money. You could always have expected that, and the money certainly can be a problem, but the campaign galvanized a lot of folks. You look at the breakdowns, and it's a very clear breakdown. Working class communities of color were showing up for Turner. Wealthy suburbs were showing up for her opponent. And that's the kind of breakdown of what the Democratic Party is. And I think using the term crossroads would be incorrect, because, the stream's going one way, right? They control that party. And we have to recognize the disadvantage.
This is where they've been marching for decades. When Bill Clinton was like, had could only dream of the Lolita Express, right?
And like, we have our armies of volunteers and people who will phone bank, but they have institutional power and institutional support that just doesn't exist for progressives. And it's just tough because sometimes you get these takes from folks. It's like, well, if we only had people running with this kind of character or like these kind of like personal abilities, then we'd win every time. And I don't want to say that the results were necessarily like um inevitable, but I think that it does show that there are a lot of places where the Democratic Party does still have a stranglehold.
Yeah, the suburbs. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
and the suburbs, and maybe let me just get to this because I think this is a real moment that we're in right now as a left in the U.S. Right, post Bernie, it's a tough time. People were looking for a win. That was one that was really needed, and especially at a moment when you are seeing people like Cory Bush trying to use more of that political leverage that they have. You would have wanted someone else to join the ranks, right? And if anything, not somebody who's just the complete opposite political perspective that people who support the Bernie Sanders campaign were. But I want to make this point really clear because there's a lot of division going on right now amongst the socialist left regarding the Democratic Party and all of these other things. And I just want to remind people of a couple of things. One, it's not your party. It just isn't. The Democratic Party is not your party. It's not a party for working people. That's it. And you shouldn't want it to be either, right? We need to be doing something different, right? And I really, really do worry sometimes that we just haven't gone through this debate properly. We haven't done the political education on not just the party form in general in like an abstract kind of way. We haven't really had a meaningful debate that led to a deeper understanding of what the Democratic Party is. We haven't built that understanding on a mass scale, right? We have a lot of conversations about it. We have a lot of yelling about it. You get a lot of moralizing about it. You have one side, that's like very much like worried about like the purity of your soul, right? If you interact with the Democratic Party, your soul has been tainted by it, right? And I think that a lot of people on that side, they haven't had a proper wrestling with the needed political development, what is needed for any kind of political alternative to rise up, right? That means that we have to open up space. And winning these kind of elections opens up space. Giving people hope and the idea that something different is possible opens up space. Producing people like Cory Bush, that opens up space, right? Yes, the Democratic Party, absolutely, as the slogan goes, is the graveyard of social movements, right? But that's a truism, right? There's a truism about it. It's not a deep enough analysis. The Bernie Sanders campaign was a massively important social change. It massively changed the game for working class politics in this country. You have to be able to wrestle with that. You have to think about it dialectically. Yes, the Democratic Party is bad. It's not ours. It represents the interests of the ruling elite, right? Um, but but we have to also understand that there have been lasting benefits that have come from recognizing that, but not just sitting on the sidelines, right? Now, but also, I don't want to sound too middle of the road here, but I also want to say that on the other side, I think that there are some people who have had no qualms with democratic socialist interventions within the Democratic Party, right? And I think they need to do a lot of soul searching as well, because while so much of the focus has been on trying to get some folks a nuanced perspective about what we can achieve regarding the Democratic Party and how we can benefit, I think there is also a group on the left that has become blind to what the Democratic Party is. It's not corrupted. It hasn't lost its way. It's the political articulation of certain sections of the ruling class, right? We see that all the time. You can see who the party answers to. You see it right there. It's not working class people or marginalized folks, no matter how much of the branding tells you that that's what they represent, right? It represents a section of the ruling class that, for historical, geographical reasons, recognizes, okay, well, this is the party that's in power. So this is the party that we need to interact with and play with. And then also a section of the ruling class that says, okay, well, capitalism is a very cruel form, but I very much benefit from it. But I would like it if, we could just sort of tamp down some of the worst egregious aspects of it. And I want to feel better about myself, right? I don't want to get those people power, right? But I think that we could just be a little bit less explicit on how we're hurting them, right? Look, that is what that party is. And they want to present themselves as like a progressive face of capitalism, the more humane version of an inhumane system, a system of profit. I just think that some on our side who genuinely do want a better future, they don't fall into that category, obviously. They disagree with the interests of the ruling class that I just outlined. They fall into this trap that by focusing on the group that, has a criticism of the Democratic Party that has like overtaken their ability to engage in politics properly, that they've fallen into the trap because basically doing sloppy analysis and think that we're going to get this big break. It's going to come through some sustained period of liberal rule. Mm-hmm. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. They got the institutions, they got the organizations, they got the money, the people to call to get the spin that they want. It doesn't mean that we can't win, but you have to understand the arenas that we're fighting in for your home, and where your home turf is. And, when you're not making those realizations, you're making a big mistake. They're going to fight us. And I don't just mean the Democrats. I mean that whole class of bosses and rich people. Yeah. They're going to fight us with everything that they have. So we have to remember the advantages that we have. We have our spawn, the point of production. We have our necessary role in production. That means that the lights turn on every day, that there's food on the shelves. We do that. That's our power. But people are very alienated and they don't recognize that, right? We have to find ways to organize to be able to use that power, both as voters and, when we're called upon to, do election stuff, but most importantly in the workplace, in the community, in your neighborhood. We got a hell of a lot of work to do. And it's going to take a host of different tactics, sometimes making nice, right? More often fighting against those who oppress us. But we need to know where we stand, know our chances, and know the ground that we stand on. Losing is going to happen. It's okay. I think, just so it's very clear, I think that campaign, it's a good campaign, right? That was a fight that needed to happen, right? I'm not saying we sit that one out, but when we're doing this analysis, okay, what does this mean for the movement, blah, 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 right? You have to recognize, okay, with the Democratic Party, they control that party. That's their institution, right? And they're going to protect it with everything that they have. We can find ways to beat them, but if we don't recognize our role in this, we're going to get really, really lost and continue to fragment. And even worse than that is the splitting off of the left that I think has happened because people don't wrestle with that question in good faith. Sorry for going on a rant, but I just saw immediately you had on one side people blaming the movement for the People's Party, which is not an organization that I like, right? But they had nothing to do with that loss, right? And then you had people on that side saying, well, this proves exactly what we've been saying, that you can never win an election. That's not true either, right? There's a lot of soul searching that needs to be done.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And, it reminds me of, remember when Chapo got in trouble for saying the bend the knee comment? Yeah. Ultimately, like that is like, or I remember Matt Brunig also saying like the hostile takeover model, and like Nina Tandon getting upset about that. And it's like, that's ultimately right. Like you have to think of the party that way. It's not something you're going to redeem and make work. That's the thing, is just like this FDR 2.0 stuff.
Oh, we don't want that. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. It'd be great to have somebody who's doing that, but like, we want to do something completely different from that as well.
Right.